Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I'm feeling great on a glorious Tuesday night. And there is only something that I'm at a loss for words. I never thought I would get paid for recommending one of my favorite restaurants of all time, Mama's Fried Chicken. So if you are not able to look, Danny decided to drop a 20 spot because I recommended Mama's Fried Chicken to him. And I'm telling you, it's that divine of a eating experience. So obviously, we'll talk about that. Danny, your super chat's already hot. And Danny wants to know about a 4X Power Hour LSU shirt. I'm actually wearing my Power Hour LSU shirt, and you can find the link down below. So obviously, a lot to get to tonight. I want to talk about Harold Perkins, the 2022 5-star linebacker. Obviously, the transfer portal has been the hot topic on this channel this week when Major Burns decided to announce his transfer from Georgia. So the one thing that we have to lead this video off with today, because we also did another video when I responded to your comments yesterday that LSU must get an offensive lineman in the portal because the position right now is not at its strongest. So the one thing I want people to understand about the transfer portal right now is that there is so much we don't understand about it. And the one thing I really like about Austin Thomas is when you hear him in interviews, he talks about how much is changing, and he doesn't come in and say, well, I know what I'm doing. I think more programs could use an Austin Thomas simply because nobody, and I mean nobody, knows what's going to happen to the transfer portal. Okay? And this is what happens. And Danny leads off with the super chat. Do we need an extra spot for Eric Gilbert? And we welcome in Roger. We welcome in Jared. Power hour inflation hitting. No, it's not just power hour. It's power hours. How about that? So here's the thing about the transfer portal. All right. And I want you guys to understand this. We're still learning. And it's not only how the transfer portal works, it's how the athletes are going to respond to the transfer portal. Are there going to actually be more guys that enter the transfer portal? Or is this something we're overrating? Do we think maybe there won't be as many guys that enter the portal over the next couple of years? Because look, right now, where you're sitting, wherever you're watching this, you have more than likely been a college football fan for over 20, 30, 40 years. And I'm not just saying an LSU fan. You're a college football fan. You obviously like LSU the most, but you like watching Oklahoma versus Texas, and you like watching Stanford, Cal, or whichever rivalry. You enjoy the sport overall. Well, this sport that you love near and dear to your heart is going to go through the most change it has ever gone through over the next 5 years. Okay. And I wanted to talk about this at the top of this live stream as well. And we'll get into the NFL draft in just a second. But understand, college football, and Marcus, you're right. Aaron Rodgers could be in the portal, and I think LSU would take him. But look, the first thing that will change is obviously the transfer portal. We've already discussed that a lot. More and more guys, now that they will be immediately available to go from school to school, will enter the transfer portal. Also, something else is going to change college football, which is the upcoming NIL. All right, name, image, and likeness. Players will be able to profit off their own image, which will change some of the economics of the sport. I don't think it's going to change as much as we probably think. I think players will just have a few Instagram sponsored posts and maybe a few sponsorship deals outside of that. We don't know. But another thing that's going to change college football is the expansion of the college football playoff, which in turn could eventually devalue college football's most valuable asset, which is it's regular season. They don't know that yet, but they look at the money value of college football and they see that you make so much more off college football playoff games. So what you're going to witness over the next 5 seasons is going to be the most radical change we've ever seen at the college game. And let's not forget about opt-outs are going to become, I think, a little bit more normal. I do think we could potentially see high-level NFL draft sophomores rethink playing their junior season. So there's so many different things that could change the sport for the better or for the worse. We just don't know. So understand, whenever I'm talking about the transfer portal, like in today's video about the offensive line, you kept hearing me say, I don't have clarity. I don't know for sure if you can go from one SEC school to the next and be able to play immediately. We don't know. There are no clear rules. We haven't heard Greg Sankey or anyone from the NCAA just answer questions from journalists or just come out and publicly say, well, this is how things are going to be from this point forward. So we'll see. What's up, Fueled by Haters? Roger said, that's true. Roger said, let's be honest, if Aaron Rodgers into the transfer portal, he will end up at Alabama. What's up, Max? Good to see you. So, Danny, the answer to your super chat, of course, had to deal with Mama's Fried Chicken. That's what we led the live stream off. I would do anything for some Mama's Fried Chicken. In fact, one of our viewers, Bo, is actually taking me out there next time I am driving through Opelousas. And, Haley and I are really looking forward to that. So it's pretty interesting. So obviously on a Tuesday night chat or just any live stream, I am open to discussing anything, but obviously there are a few ways that I go to your question immediately. The first obviously is with a super chat or a Venmo or a Cash App. The Venmo Cash App is pinned to the top of the page, or of course you can order a shirt, and I have my trusty phone right here. And guess what? If you order a shirt, an email will be sent to me, and it will let me know but when you ordered the shirt. And then in the chat, you can pick whatever topic LSU football related you want. Now, at the end of the live stream, about an hour and a half from now, we'll talk about other topics. If you want to talk about Kim Mulkey or the NBA or whatever, we'll get to that. But obviously, the first hour plus of this is LSU football and LSU recruiting related. Now, I want to share this from the NFL draft. So this is something very interesting, and I'll get to your question in just a second, Fueled by Haters. In the title, you heard NFL draft equals 2021 title. So this is fascinating. Every season, and if you've watched my content for a while, I've shared this stat quite a few times. LSU, of course, has reached the national championship game 4 times since 2003, and we have been very lucky to win 3 of those, okay? A lot of programs go 500 in national championship games. We're lucky to have gone 75%, and obviously all of them are in New Orleans. However, one stat that often coincides with LSU being good or bad is how many draft picks there were the year prior. So in 2019, there were only 3 draft picks the year prior. It was Greedy Williams, Foster Moreau, and of course, the biggest was Devin White. And then you go back to 2011, Patrick Peterson and 4 other LSU Tigers were drafted. And then you go back before 2007, we had 6 players selected, most notably Jamarcus Russell. And then you go back to, of course, 2003, we had 4 players selected the year before. So we have had 6 or fewer players selected the year before. Now, if you go all the way back to 2003, LSU has had 7 draft picks or more on average every season. It's about, I'd have to do the calculations again. It's about 7 draft picks per season. So what do we know? Well, each and every season LSU has reached a national championship game. They have had 6 or fewer draft picks. Well, this season, they had 7 draft picks. 7. All right. So does that mean that disqualifies LSU from going to the national championship game? No. The first is obviously this is an arbitrary number. You can lose however many draft picks and go to the national championship game. But the 7 doesn't quite represent 7 draft picks. in this case because 3 of the draft picks did not play last season. So obviously, Kerry Vincent, Tyler Shelvin, and Jamar Chase did not play this past season. So the players in place of them got those snaps. And what that stat to me tells me is that LSU, the years that they've won national championships, returned a lot of good players. Okay. And, think back to all the national championship teams. Most of those teams were comprised of mostly second year starters. Okay. You look at now obviously the 2019 team was pretty much all second year starters. Okay. It was Justin Jefferson, Clyde to a certain degree, Joe Burrow, and so on and so on. Obviously Lloyd Cushenberry. And then on the defensive side, it was, Grant Delpit. He was a third year starter, but Christian Fulton and Caleb Von Chason and so on and so on. So LSU is returning a lot of experience. According to a new stat called RTI, LSU returns the most experience in all of college football. Now, there's other experience stats that don't quite agree with that, but that goes to show you that NFL draft stat that I've shared a few times, it doesn't quite apply because really, in theory, LSU lost 4 NFL draft picks from last year's team. So, I wanted to share that because, I saw Cole Kubelik share that it was LSU lost only a certain amount of actual games played last season, which is pretty interesting. Let's see. What's up, Kareem? Are you watching with your son, Caden? Let me know. This is for Caden right here. We got the flashlight today. Let's go. Looking for that next Super Chat, Venmo, Cash App, T-shirt. All right. Cody, you've asked this question quite a few times. How does Bama get transfers when they're already at 29? I don't know. The way I've understood it is that because they have a certain amount of transfers or players that leave, they could fill those roster slots. I don't know exactly how it works, Cody. That's why I always say when it comes to the transfer portal and stuff, I just try and comprehend it the best I possibly can. And Cliff makes a good comment here. All experience isn't good experience. That's true. That's true. Because there are some guys that are returning starters that I am not so sure should be the guys actually starting next season. And if you super chat, I'll happily share a few of those guys. Now, we get to this question here. Cliff also said, Mama's Fried Chicken not better than Delpit's in Baton Rouge. Full disclosure, I lived in Baton Rouge for a while. I've never had Delpit's chicken. Okay, but Mama's Fried Chicken is iconic. And, Haley's not here. I could say this. My ex-girlfriend introduced me to Mama's Fried Chicken. So that is one of the few things she did positively for me. Now, she was nice. But still, that was the best thing. I mean, Mama's Fried Chicken is divine. So here's the thing. Fueled by haters here. Why can't LSU get elite offensive linemen out of the gate? Is it our O-line coach? Okay. Let's see. Carter's a fraud. I will happily take the fraud comment. I know Cole, he's a friend, so no Cole Kubelik hatred here. What's up, Johnny? I was waiting for you, man. Johnny, I want to admit something to you. I actually lost the cards in the move, but I found them again. So this one obviously is going to Rai in Canada. And Johnny, I'm actually sending you a pack of LSU cards. Okay. Boom. That's coming to you, Johnny. A pack of LSU cards right here, unopened. Actually, no, I actually opened these because I wanted to make sure you're getting some good ones. I'm dead serious. And I'm sending you because I bought these packs of cards, Johnny, and I'm going to be honest, they've kind of been blanks. They haven't been great. So I wanted to make sure you got a good pack, and I might give you a few more that I opened. I might send you another one of these packs. I mean, I don't know. But Johnny, I'm going to send you some other cool stuff as well. I've never been to Delpits. I've never. So Roger with the super chat, start naming names. Some experienced starters who I think should not retain their role. Okay, so I think Cam Wire is a better option at right tackle, and I would put Austin Deculus at right guard just to see what happens. That would help Austin Deculus' strengths. His biggest weakness are speed rushers, undersized guys. And Sony Fanua really gave Austin Deculus that work in the spring game. So I would be very interested to see Austin Deculus at right tackle, and switch up a few other things on the offensive line. So that would be one guy. Another guy who started last season, who I think may not start this next season, is Neil Farrell. Now, I will say this. Neil Farrell had an incredible spring game. He looks in the best shape of his life. I just think Joseph Evans and Jaquelin Roy are emerging right now, and those will be your starters at defensive tackle. But I'll tell you this, Neil Farrell could be playing the best ball of his career right now, and he looked in a lot better shape. And remember this, Neil Farrell made a last-second decision to play last season because his family was dealing with the pandemic pretty. So yeah, welcome Paris, welcome Amacat. Welcome, Kane and Jared. DRC with Damon Clark. I agree. I think Damon Clark should be used as a situational pass rusher where he was pretty good. I watched a few snaps of Damon Clark from 2019 where he just made a lot of plays. Maybe put him back in the number 35 uniform. Look, wearing the number 18, it can get to your head a little bit when you get one of these coveted jersey numbers. You think about the Hesters and the Mocks and the Terrence McGee's, guys that, got better when they put that jersey number on. It's the Tre'Davious White, whoever you want to mention. Maybe that's part of what Damon Clark just makes so many mental mistakes. But if you look at him in 2019, the dude was an animal. And I saw him put some offensive guards on their butts when they put him at a 3 tech and let him pass rush. So it's pretty interesting. Fueled by haters. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. He drops a nice little PayPal here. So fueled by haters, thank you so much. And your question was the offensive line recruiting. So we're going to go straight to it. So Roger, hopefully that gave you a few names right there. I'm going to be doing some depth chart pieces over the next couple of weeks. So this is kind of a spoiler alert. I might change my mind, but Neil Farrell, that's kind of unfair because he's playing the best foot. I mean, his spring game was really good. So just to go through a few names, I would like to see Austin Deculus replaced by Cam Wire and Deculus move at right guard. Damon Clark, I would take out of the starting lineup and let him be a situational pass rusher and a third down specialist where he excelled. And, maybe Cordell Flood. And tomorrow, we got that Elias Ricks film study. Elias Ricks' best play as a true freshman came when he was playing in the slot. So is that someone? Is Dwight McGlothern the answer at the slot? Is it Jay Ward? Can Sage Ryan step in and be a superstar free safety day one? And then you could put Jay Ward at the slot where he was really good. I've gone through and watched the Florida game. Tomorrow, we're going to be breaking down a few plays from the Florida game where you could visually see how Elias Ricks got into Kyle Trask's head. It's amazing what a pick six can do to a quarterback's confidence. There is a huge difference between an interception and a pick six mentally. An interception, if it's an arm punt, if it's an interception where the corner doesn't return it for that many yards, it's not quite the same as when a corner takes it back for a long run back or a touchdown. Because here's the thing about a pick six is that when you get a pick six, you got to go right back out on the field. And what you'll see tomorrow on the film study is because Kyle Trask had to go right back on the field, he made a huge mistake in the LSU versus Florida game. And you'll see it tomorrow at 5:30 Central. Make sure you don't miss it. So there you go. Now, Fueled by Haters sent in a super chat, and I want your feedback on this as well about offensive line recruiting. Okay. Now, here's the thing. No, it's okay. PayPal is perfectly fine. So Jawan says Cordell Flott shouldn't start at nickel. So I'll answer. Well, actually, I just answered that. So let's go to the offensive line. All right. Now, this is kind of hard to talk about when it comes to offensive line recruiting, okay? Because you do have to factor in a few other names that have not turned out. So, obviously, Cardell Thomas is a guy that was an elite Louisiana offensive lineman, hasn't panned out. Cedric Van Pran was a top 100 offensive lineman. He was the number 3 ranked player in Louisiana, one of the highest rated centers to ever come out of Louisiana. He decided to go to Georgia. He is yet to see the field. Is his career different if he goes to LSU? Well, I'll tell you this. If he had gone to LSU, he would have been the starter at center when Lloyd Cushenberry left. So, Cedric Van Pran decided to go elsewhere. Now you have a guy like Ray Parker, who's out of Ruston, and Ruston is near and dear to my heart. Well, he had off the field issues. So, and it was, I don't want to get into what he did because it gets me a little worked up, but he didn't pan out. So you can't blame LSU for that. When someone does something criminal, it's a little different. So regarding this LSU offensive line position, you take a look at the recruiting of the position, and the first thing you have to talk about is Louisiana hasn't produced many elite offensive linemen, which makes this class of 2022 very interesting. Now, I don't know if Mo Funky's in the chat. He and I have personally discussed this because Mo Funky is a recruiting wizard. So the thing is, I tend to how close do you let lightning get before you go inside? What, Jared? How close do you let lightning get before you go inside? Jared, are you in the middle of bad weather? I'm kind of curious now. This is serious. Jared has been watching for a while. Tell me what's going on, Jared. We've got to figure out. What's up, Josh? Josh, you're always the first person in the chat, and tonight you're the 48th. What's up with that, Josh? Can someone check on Jared for us, please? Okay. All right. So I see your comment here, Jared. This thunderstorm needs to chill out. I'm trying to watch, Carter. Are you okay? Can Paris check on Jared? Can Cliff check on Jared? Jawan, someone check on Jared. It's thunderstorming. It's peach emoji off. Branson, everyone stop. Okay. Branson, look, you're a high schooler. I know this. All right. Or you're fresh out of high school. You and I have discussed your relationship with some of the Ponchatoula kids that have played for LSU. Here is the thing, Branson. Drive safely. Because people like Kane care about you personally. Okay, I know Kane talks a lot of trash on here. But Kane wants to make sure you're okay, Jared. Oh, you're in Mobile. That's right, Jared. Oh, man. Thanks, Amacat. Jared, are you just watching on your phone in the middle of a thunderstorm? Hey, Carter, I'm going to send you $5. I am not Jim Cantori. I am not Al Roker. I am not Tom Pearson or any famous meteorologist you want to name. I am. I got my GF commenting. Branson, that's a good girlfriend right there. So here's the thing, Branson. I don't want you or your girlfriend to comment just yet until you get home. All right? Because, Branson, there are some elders in here that are a little older than you that have been in car accidents. And, Branson, I don't know if you've been in a car accident. I was in a serious car accident in high school, okay? And it was really bad. Really, really bad. And I was lucky to walk away, as was the passenger. But I got crushed, okay? Now, I'm very lucky to be alive. The paramedics on the scene said we were lucky to walk away unscathed, as did the driver. But I still think about it a lot. So please be safe. Please, please be safe. Cody, I didn't know you were in Atlanta. Paris is also in Atlanta. I need to make a Power Hour LSU comedy stop in Atlanta. I love ATL. Talk about a ride or die. Exactly, Kane. If Kane was in the middle of bad weather, he wouldn't be watching me. Oh, Roger, that's a little too cheesy. Roger, you and I will be linking up shortly about the card. Let's see. You know what's funny, Mo Funky? You and I have talked about Justin Poindexter. I really like him a lot. I listened to that interview you sent me, and man, that dude is pretty sharp, and I'm happy he's with LSU now. Junior Belton's also interesting. I was looking up Junior Belton and his recruiting ranking. I believe he and Patrick Mahomes had the same exact high school recruiting ranking. I was looking at their 247 profiles not too long ago. And for those that don't know, Junior Belton is the new director of scouting at LSU. And where was Junior Belton before LSU? I forgot. But anyway, his story is really interesting too. I'm glad those guys are with LSU. But yeah, hopefully Justin Poindexter will help out this offensive line or help us out big time. But Roger, I do appreciate the kind words. I'm lucky to get to do this now for a job. I don't want to call this a job. It's kind of weird because at some point I will start some other media venture, but this is what I do 100% of the time. Every time I wake up, I'm thinking about the next video or the live chat or whatever. And I'll tell you this. So Saturday night, we didn't have a live chat because I was doing an event. And the whole time I was at the event, I was like, I could be doing a live chat. And I've shared this before and I'll share it again. For me to miss so for instance, Haley and I were thinking about going somewhere this weekend. And I said, I can't miss a Saturday night live chat. I love doing the Saturday night live chats. So, it's interesting. And Haley knew about the event and what actually happened. It was fun. Everything was great. The venue was wonderful. But it's interesting. I was like, God, I missed a live stream. I know the Julian Armella guy is interesting. Kane, I wish I could get that. If Dan Lebitard called me today for a job, I'd be happy to join the crew. But I'm not sure if I get the show, if you know what I mean. They just hired Jessica. How do you say her last name? She was with Sports Illustrated, super talented. So I'm really happy for those guys. $50 million. Dan Lebitard got a check for $50 million. I wish DraftKings or FanDuel. DraftKings or FanDuel sponsor the channel. I won't have to ask for so many super chats. So yeah, I wish I was getting that Lebitard money. Mo Funky, you were in an accident? Wow. Oh man, that's wild. But yeah, what's interesting about the 2022 offensive line recruiting, and fueled by haters, this was your super chat. This was, when you're recruiting, when you think about LSU recruiting, all right, and obviously out-of-state guys, LSU would not win national championships if they didn't have out-of-state guys, okay? So obviously the best player to ever play at this school was Joe Burrow, and he's from Ohio. And then, Caleb Von Chason, one of the greats, is from Texas. And then Gary Vincent is from Texas, and Jamal Adams is from Texas, and Patrick Peterson's from Florida. So you need out-of-state guys to win national championships and win a lot of games. Some of the greatest LSU Tigers of all time are from out-of-state. So, as many of you know, though, LSU is mostly Louisiana guys. Some guys are 5 stars, obviously. Sage Ryan, Jacoby Matthews, Mason Smith, Keishon Butte recently, and then, go back to some of the other greats, Leonard Fournette. So a lot of these are in-state 5 stars that come to LSU. But there's also a lot of in-state three-stars that have gone on to be fantastic players. Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so on and so on. So, bottom line is LSU is Louisiana. Okay. There is no school that has had success like LSU that has a tighter tie with the state of Louisiana when it comes to greatness. Okay. So, for instance, we are LSU football. We are Louisiana. So, when it comes to the offensive line, well, this has never been the position. Now, of course, LSU has produced Lyle Collins, Will Clapp, Garrett Brumfield. Um, and then it's also produced Trey Turners, guys that are three stars out of the state of Louisiana, Adrian McGee, Lloyd Cushenberry. But overall, if you look historically, offensive line, even though we have Alan Faneca and Kevin Mawai in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's probably the weakest position when it comes to Louisiana producing great players. Okay. Now, the class of 2022, that changes. Emery Jones is going to commit to LSU at some point, and then Will Campbell and Bo Bordelon. But really, that's not been the case. And what's really hurt LSU, fueled by haters, is that, and this is really key, is that the few LSU offensive linemen that were elite recruits from Louisiana just haven't turned out. We mentioned Ray Parker a minute ago, Cardell Thomas, and so on and so on. So that's part of it. You don't get that benefit of the doubt. Okay, so let's take Mickey Joseph, for instance, who is one of the better coaches on staff, one of the better recruiters on staff, and his track record's pretty impeccable. But Mickey Joseph has the state of Louisiana, and I think it's pretty clear by now LSU's strongest position is arguably wide receiver. If you factor in Louisiana guys and LSU guys, it seems to be that's where this thing is going for LSU. Now, we'll always produce elite defensive backs, but we've had other defensive backs from outside the state of Louisiana. It's mostly been Johnny, thank you for the super chat. It's mostly been just Louisiana guys. So what's that mean? Well, number one, Louisiana just doesn't produce many offensive linemen. But on top of that, the development hasn't been there, and the recruiting of out-of-state offensive linemen hasn't been there. LSU should never be a school that only gets 1 4-star in a recruiting class, no matter how much talent's in the state of Louisiana. They only got 1 4-star in the last recruiting class, and they only got 1 4-star the year before. It's not good enough. It's just not good enough. And, we could talk all we want about Austin Deculus and, not struggling against quick guys. For the most part, Austin Deculus has been a net positive. And think about how much would be different now if he never came to LSU. Well, he was a blue chip. He was a top 50 recruit nationally outside of the state of Louisiana. And we were very lucky to get him. And he has been more of a unicorn than pretty much anyone else. We will get elite guys at the other position outside of the state, outside of offensive line. So that obviously has got to get better. The development's got to get better and all those things. Here's the thing, though, fueled by haters, that concerns me the most. And then we'll get to Johnny's super chat next. What concerns me more than anything is when I was watching the spring game, you have to mentally put this note into it. And I was listening to Matt Flynn with Hester and T-Bob recently, and they asked him, how much of the spring game did you watch? And he said, well, I didn't watch much of it. Actual players, especially quarterbacks, really struggle watching a spring game because the toughest aspect of quarterbacking is taking out of the spring game, which to me nowadays is figuring out what type of blitz is going to be thrown at you. Okay. Now that so many offenses run 5 wide receiver sets, and JT O'Sullivan did a really good breakdown on Spencer Rattler, and he talked about this because Oklahoma does a lot of 5 wide receiver sets as well, or empty sets, or even 4 wide. If you run 5-man protection, you're going to get so many different types of blitzes. So in the spring game, the LSU offensive line struggled with protection. But the thing and this is what bothers me the most, is that we cannot pick up blitzes. It's hard. It's really hard to do. It's hard to know. And sometimes an offensive line, the blitz call could just be perfect, okay? And you have no shot. It happened a few times in 2019 Alabama. You have no shot. But last season, it was so bad. We couldn't pick up a blitz to save our lives. So our development's not great. We can't move guys in the running game. We're struggling to recruit right now. And then on top of all of that, we're struggling on the mental aspect of it, processing information. Okay, if this guy in the B gap comes, well, what if someone blitzing into this play side A gap? Do I pick up the blitzer or should I pick up this B gap pressure? Am I going to tell Austin Deculus to block down? Am I going to tell Darrow? It's a lot. It's hard to explain in a live stream. It's very complex. And guess what? The quarterbacks were absolved of that because you don't blitz in the spring game and you don't hit the quarterbacks. So that's what really concerns me. And then if you actually look at the national championship teams that Alabama's won national championships with, we talk about, Mark Ingram, and we talk about Amari Cooper and Rolando McClain and all these great Bama players. They've always had great offensive lines. They've always had the best offensive lines. And that's the biggest difference between us and Alabama. It's not wide receivers, I'll tell you that. It's definitely not quarterbacks. It's definitely not running backs. What about defensive line? Alabama's probably had slightly better defensive linemen. Linebackers are about even. And we've probably had the better secondary. The biggest gap between them and us, I don't need to say it anymore. And we'll move on to Johnny's super chat here. All right. So Trey, I know you just joined us. Your super chat is the same thing that well, it's a little different. So I'll get into that. Let me Trey, I'll go back to your let me see it. I'm gonna go. Let me see. I'm trying to make this as linear because a lot of people come back and watch it later. Okay, so Johnny is current. Okay, this is more important than your comment. Okay, Trey. All right, because love is in the air. I am shocked. I'm honestly shocked. Okay. And Paris, I agree with you. We got to develop some offensive alignment for next year. We're screwed. We are screwed. Okay. Which is why I'm interested in that guy from Florida in my video from earlier today. Branson just got home safely. So shout out to Branson and his girlfriend. I know Max watches with his girlfriend. Darryl, that's a good point. Saban had no problem getting online to LSU in 02 and 03. Yeah, Mo Funky. I think they thought Cush was going to come back. Andrew Whitworth, of course, is a legend. So, Trey, before we get to your super chat, everyone, we got to welcome someone new to the chat. So, apparently, Johnny is with his girlfriend, and I am shocked so many of you watch our content with your significant others. I know Debbie watches with her significant other. I know it's weird. Our female viewers oftentimes are watching with their husbands. Shout out to you, Leslie. But this is huge for Johnny. His girlfriend, Gail, is watching our channel for the first time. So everyone, round of applause for Gail. Everybody shout out Gail. I'm telling you, you're the most famous Gail I know. Outside of Gail Sayers and Oprah Gail. A woman that will watch football with their guy is a keeper. Jared says, I have a wife, never have to worry about her watching with me. Everyone say what's up to Gail. What's up, Nick? About time you joined us. Everyone welcome Gail. So there you go. Gail, I'm sorry that Johnny likes watching this channel. And I know it could be a little boring, Gail, but understand. I hate Gail. This is the first time you're watching because, part of the reason, and I want just a little, I said I won't bring her up that often, but just a little booger anecdote. anecdote here. Part of the reason why Haley started bringing Bug onto the channel was, just to give a break from the LSU football. And we knew that. I know Kareem watches with his son, just to give a break for people that don't like LSU football. That I know some of you watch on like your big screens or your phone or whatever. And that was Bug's thing. So, obviously Haley and I are discussing, are we going to get another dog? I'm talking to some of my other friends about that. So Gail, welcome to the channel. I know it could be a little boring. You're probably wondering, how could 55 obsessed people in the middle of an offseason care this much about LSU football? Gail, I don't know the answer to that, Gail. I just don't. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, and we think about this all the time. Roger's like, look, Johnny, does Gail have a sister? But they have subscribed, though. You know what's funny, Spence? She's blushing. There you go. Welcome, Gail. Welcome. Spence, that's a good point about Coach Stud. I think in the grand scheme of things, we tend to underrate Coach Stud during the Les Myles years. For those that don't know, Coach Stud is Greg Studwara. And he was the offensive line coach during the Les Myles years. And eventually he was promoted to offensive coordinator. And he was the offensive coordinator for the 2011 season. And obviously the 2012 debacle happened. And that sucked. And now he's the offensive line coach at Ohio State. He's obviously super talented. I've always been told he's super talented. And you think back to some of those great LSU offensive lines during those times, Siren Black, Lyle Hitt, just good players. All right. Now, offensive line was a little bit more simple if you're a run-based team, but still, those guys would mow people over, just mow people down. Will Blackwell, T-Bob, those guys, they were monsters. He's at Ohio State right now. Rogers 26 and searching. There you go, Raj. All LSU football all the time. Yes, sir. Chris Falk. Yeah, Chris Falk was solid. Toby Weathersby was a good lineman. Nick wants to talk some recruiting. I will get to some recruiting, Nick, in just a second. I'm going to answer Trey's question, though. And, we just spent a lot of time talking about offensive line. We're probably one of the few LSU channels, or we're probably one of the few fan bases that talks about offensive line as much as we do. I wish we could be Alabama, having nonstop offensive linemen just falling in our laps, including the Brockermeyer brothers and J.C. Latham last season. I keep hearing that LA doesn't produce offensive linemen. What are the reasons as to why that is? Okay. So this kind of ties in to Fueled by Hater Super Chat, but some of it is just luck and genetics. It's just how it is. Some states produce great players. Others don't. Look at Louisiana wide receivers. Well, let's go back to that. There was a wide receiver for the first time in 20 plus years to win a Heisman Trophy. He's from Louisiana, and he didn't even go to LSU. The position, goes all the way back to Mike Wallace, who was a 2-star in New Orleans, went to Ole Miss and was incredible in the NFL. It's just something LSU doesn't produce a lot of. And, I don't know exactly why. You take someone like Will Clapp, for instance, his dad, genetics. His dad was a great LSU offensive lineman. I knew Will. I hadn't talked to him in years, but I knew him a little bit. And that was obviously a big thing for his development. So some of it is just genetics, but, some of it, you also got to keep in mind, Louisiana produces the most NFL players per capita in the NFL. I think only Georgia produces more per capita than Louisiana. So this state has so many great players, and LSU has the biggest advantage over any other school in college football when it comes to recruiting. Of course, like I mentioned, you got to go out of state to get some great players, but LSU, to be in a talent-rich state such as this one, and to be the only Power 5 school, You got to remember, if you're a high school recruit and you grow up in the state of Louisiana, everyone surrounding you is an LSU football fan. Everyone. Doesn't matter where you are. So think about not only all the great players from Baton Rouge, but think about all the great players from Shreveport. Think about all the great players from Monroe. Think about all the great players that LSU's had from these regions. And it's such a huge advantage. It just happens to be that Louisiana doesn't produce a lot of offensive linemen, but they produce everybody else. And now they're producing quarterbacks. So that's it, Trey. I mean, I don't think that there's any. I don't think high school offensive line coaching is bad. I don't think it's anything else other than that. I think it's more ridiculous that a state, the population of Louisiana, produces so many great players at so many different positions. So it's more so that the offensive line, take any state surrounding Louisiana, take Mississippi, for instance. So here's a good example of this. So Louisiana produces linemen, but LSU just doesn't get them. It's the exact opposite. Louisiana doesn't produce really any offensive linemen, period. Trust me, if you're a good enough offensive lineman, you're going to want to go to LSU. Cooking old rice and gravy tonight. Yes, genetically, LA produces speed. So here's a good example, Trey. All right, so take Louisiana. All right, take the state. So obviously, Louisiana is bordered by Texas. All right, and Texas is this huge state. All right. So it makes sense that Texas has all these populated cities such as San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas. It makes sense that they produce a lot of elite high school players. All right. But Louisiana's makeup is more so in line with Mississippi than it is with Texas, right? So Mississippi doesn't hardly produce any elite players. All right. A good example is Deion Smith. Deion Smith is one of the few like elite Mississippi recruits. I think he is the highest rated Mississippi recruit since the DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Jeffrey Simmons crop of Mississippi players. So Mississippi for years did not produce a player of Deion Smith's caliber. All right. Now think about how hard it is to recruit Mississippi with the lack of talent that state has, and there's not one but two Power 5 SEC schools in the state. All right. So Louisiana not only produces way more elite guys, their 3-star guys are way better than Mississippi's 3-star guys. So what does that mean? Well, Louisiana produces all these amazing high school prospects with no competition. So it is ridiculous. It's mind-boggling, really. So that's part of it. Now, it's obviously more complex than just that, but it's true. Look historically, there are so many more great Louisiana wide receivers. It's ridiculous the run that they're on right now. The last 7 top 100 national wide receivers that have gone to LSU have all made the NFL, including the 2 that transferred out of the program, still made it to the NFL. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So it's not only that Louisiana produces a lot of great players, a lot of them don't flame out. It's utterly mind-boggling how many great players come from this area. And Christian makes another good point. Louisiana produces great defensive linemen. So, Barton Simmons, I'm not Barton Simmons. I'm not, a recruiting ace. So they would be able to answer that. Shea or whoever would be able to answer that better than me. But that's my interpretation of the data that I've gone through. All right. Get Speegs on the phone, Kane. Speegs. Speegs and I have a really good relationship. We used to do a podcast together. But Speegs is recruiting knowledge. I mean, he might be the best. But that dude knows, God, he knows every high school coach. He knows their family. If you've ever hung out with one of these recruiting writers, especially him, I hung out with him for a day and we did a podcast together. So most of the time we would do podcasts just, via the phone. And me and him met one time at his house in New Orleans. And I was utterly shocked at watching that guy do his work. It is ridiculous. Like how many, I just couldn't do the recruiting thing where you're actually calling these coaches, calling these players. It takes a special type of human. The Julie Baldwins, the guys and gals that are really good at this. I listened to that podcast, right? Leonard, you got me on the big screen tonight. So I am curious, just to take a quick aside, we'll get back into some of the Spence says we should focus OL recruiting in Texas, Florida, Mississippi, and cherry pick OL targets across the state. Easier said than done. Let's be fair to LSU. They couldn't have done anything more with Xavier Byrd. They did everything they possibly could. They got Garrett Nussmeier recruiting him. Xavier Byrd rode with Garrett Nussmeier to Baton Rouge. And, it just didn't happen. He went to Oklahoma, which makes sense. This could also be something. Oklahoma's they got Adrian Ely out of Gonzalez. And that dude, good player, really good player. And he was just in the NFL draft. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough. It's really, really tough to put a finger on outside the state. Now, this was something I was pretty passionate about, the recruitment of the Brockermeyer brothers, because that's a rare 2-for-1 deal right there. Tommy and James Brockermeyer from the class of 2021. I thought J.C. Latham would go to Ohio State. He went to Alabama, which sucks. The Bryce Foster kid, that kid is an athlete. He went to Texas A&M. But the Brockermeyer brothers was interesting because they were set to come to Baton Rouge for the LSU Texas game this past season. And because of the pandemic, they weren't able to go. What else? I mean, what could Ed Orgeron have done about that? There's nothing. So, so much of it is just brand. It comes down to your brand. What's LSU's brand? Well, they have the biggest celebrities at wide receiver. Odell is the biggest celebrity in the NFL that's not a quarterback. Justin Jefferson just got a dance on the video game, Fortnite. Their wide receiver brand is bigger than anybody's right now. Jamar Chase, first overall. Defensive back, that speaks for itself. Linebacker, superstar of the Super Bowl. Okay. Running back, superstar of the Super Bowl. It's every other position except that one. Quarterback. Well, we'll see how that ACL holds up. So, the brand is good everywhere except there. And, when you don't have that brand, players respond to that. They look to see who's in the NFL. And one thing that we also tend to take for granted, I know we talk about him a lot on this channel, but Tyrann Mathieu has done so much for the LSU brand because the kids around the country, and this was when I was interviewing, more kids. I was doing more, high school reporting about 5 or 7 years ago. And I was shocked at how many kids told me, oh, I just watch Tyrann Mathieu clips on YouTube all day, every day. They said they would watch him to get hyped before a game. And, that stuff gets ingrained in your head. And name the LSU offensive lineman. Well, we've gotten a lot of positive press at that. We've gotten 2 offensive linemen in the Hall of Fame in the last 5 years. Andrew Whitworth has lasted, he started playing in the NFL when J.R. Tolkien penned his first novel. I mean, he's been in the NFL forever. But it's more it's more than just that. Cody, we will not have Domino's slander on this chat. It's funny because Mo Funky and I were Mo Funky and I were discussing pizzas before. Jared Roser, let's see, Jared was a good friend of mine in high school. I was friends with his brother in high school as well. All Samoan lineman from Utah. Maybe that's something. You got to get outside the box. Spence G for recruiting coordinator. I will take it. No, I'm just kidding, Spence. Junior Belton's going to help out a lot. North or Hawaii. Big Al, I don't know if you're still watching. He sent me a few guys. And like Tremaine said, hit the like button, guys and gals, if you're enjoying this unbiased LSU content. You know what? I try to be objective about my dear beloved LSU Tigers. I look at things objectively. And I got to thank my LSU journalism professors. My two favorite journalism professors, I know this is boring, is Dr. Jace Shellady and Dr. Andrea Miller. They're great. I don't think either one of them's at LSU anymore. But Jay Shellady is world class. I know Craig Freeman went to Oklahoma State. Oh, Craig. That was like 10 years ago, though. That is the T-shirt link. I am shocked. You see, this is what happens. Haley's not here. And when she wore the shirt, we got 2 sales. We got 2 sales when Haley wore the shirt. But when I wear the shirt, when I wear the Power Hour LSU shirt, Leonard, I know you got your shirt. Trey, I know you got your shirt. Maybe it's me. I think it's me. I don't have my model girlfriend here. I don't have my Giselle here. I don't have my Gabrielle Union here. Okay? And I don't look like Tom Brady or Dwayne Wade. I'm not a handsome person. I knew my model here. But Haley said, look, I got to get these toes done. And that's where she is right now. She's getting them feetses done. Kara says it's the scheme. Kari, a.k.a. the president of the Ray Darius Jones fan club. I love it. Carvis, what's good, man? About time you joined us, Carvis. Hey, you guys, King Ulysses actually commented on a video this week. I talked to him. He said he is currently moving right now. Spinchy, I know nothing about Kevin Mawai's coaching. Could he be a good coach? I don't know. Let's crack a 5-hour. Am I going to crack a 5-hour tonight? Should I? Yeah, might as well. F it. No. Yes. No. I'm going to let you decide. Guys, should I crack this 5-hour? Tremaine, Paris, DRC, Carvis, Leonard. Should I do it? Do it? Mr. G? Can't have a name like Mr. G and give me life advice. I'm not doing it because Haley's going to complain. You're just going to be up all night looking at football tape. What is that, DRC? Dates? I ate 2 dates myself. Jack Marlowe, what's good? I'm not going to. Shout out, everyone. Welcome my buddy Dane. He is one of my best buddies. He doesn't comment though. Exactly, Leonard. All right. Well, I'm not going to. All right. We're about an hour in. That's when we normally get into recruiting. There are no recruiting super chats. So I'll let you guys pick the topic. I know Paris asked about Harold Perkins. I read the 247 report this morning. Bill had a really good report about him. And they said he said that Harold Perkins works out in New Orleans and the staff feels pretty good about it. So shout out to Bill Embody with a really good report on that. And Bill is very familiar with the Texas area as well. So, yeah, I mean, if he's from the Louisiana area, yeah, I think LSU would be something he's very interested in. So Harold Perkins, of course, is someone to keep an eye on. He's the number 1 linebacker in high school football, the number 12 ranked national player, 5-star. Would he be interested in staying in Louisiana? Maybe. What's interesting is so many kids now train outside of the LSU facility. And what you'll see now, and this is just how life works. One of the most important things to keep in mind when it comes to recruiting is they're always going to do what professional players do, right? So they're going to mimic LeBron and they're going to mimic Justin Jefferson and they're going to mimic, the superstars. And one thing that is pretty common amongst superstar athletes is having personal trainers. So you look at guys like, Ryan Clark, James Washington, and other private trainers. A friend of mine from college. Well, I knew James in college, but I knew another trainer, Ashton Lowe, is a really talented trainer in Baton Rouge. I knew Ashton well in college. These personal trainers, they know your body. They're with you all the time. And a lot of the best personal trainers are in South Louisiana. And Harold Perkins, of course, is training in New Orleans. So maybe that is something that will help LSU out in recruiting as we move forward. So that is something to keep in mind with Harold Perkins. Cheryl says, what is Jack Besh's 40 time? 4.13. I'm kidding. I don't know Jack Besh's 40. He's really athletic, though. I know he's got mad hops. So yeah, I think I guess Jack Besh would be 4.6. Spence G. So who we getting with that last spot? Man, Spence, sorry to say this. My brain is fried on that topic since my videos on Monday and today have been on that very thing. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. It seems as if Ed Orgeron, and boom, we get a Cash App here from, what's up? Thanks, Tremaine. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. I didn't know you could use Cash App to get Taco Bell. I don't live near Chipotle. Or is it Chipotle or is it Chipotle? But anyway, I appreciate that, Tremaine. Thank you so much. And thank you for always letting people know that to hit the thumbs up button, it's so important. So Spence, so obviously, Tremaine, you get to pick the topic. Any recruiting question that you have, I think you're normally a guy that says, just talk about whatever. So we'll keep it going. Yeah, I appreciate that. Tremaine, I'm going to come hang out with you in Vegas at some point. We'll go to South Point or wherever. Let's see. I think there's a good chance they roll the last spot over to the next class. I brought that up at the end of the video today, Preston. I think that's what LSU should do. Here's my thing. If the person you're getting now can't help you right now, Bayou Bengal, thank you. And what's up, Mike? Good to see you. Um, if the player is not a slam dunk, someone that you know can play, I wouldn't get him. I would let it roll over to 2022. And there's a few reasons why. The first is that your class of 2022 is incredible. You're off to a fiery hot start for the class of 2022. And, you see a guy like Harold Perkins. What that slot does is it gives you a little bit more wiggle room as far as chasing 5 stars. Whereas, that extra slot could be Jordan Allen, a 3-star DB out of Lafayette Christian, Sage Ryan's high school. I know a lot of you that there is a growing number of LSU fans that are getting really impatient about Jordan Allen, and they're screaming that he gets an offer. Well, if you are one of those people that wants Jordan Allen to be a part of this recruiting class, and if they do offer him, he would come immediately, and because his best friends are on, LSU, Terrence Welsh, and of course Jacoby Matthews. If you are one of those people that wants a Jordan Allen, a 3-star DB, to get an offer, then you want this slot to roll over to next season because it gives you another slot to get a guy like Jordan Allen. But some of you are from Baton Rouge. Some of you live in Baton Rouge, and some of you want Major Burns. And there's some people that say, well, Major Burns probably knows a few of these 2022 kids. And if you get them, that's obviously going to help get that player to Baton Rouge. And maybe, LSU feels a little emotional connection to Major Burns. Maybe that's part of the allure here in getting him to Baton Rouge. Someone brought up earlier today, and they commented under our video from earlier, well, Major Burns played in 6 games for Georgia this past season, which is true, but he didn't play safety, and that was for good reason. Georgia was pretty loaded in the secondary. Neptune, we're on it right now. So that's the thing. This final slot, it's really up in the air. I gave you the offensive lineman in my video earlier today that I'm not going to say I think they should go after him because I haven't watched his tape, but I just shared the best offensive lineman I could find in the portal, and it's a backup from the Florida Gators, TJ Moore. I agree, Bayou Bingo. I would be really shocked if Emery Jones is not a part of this recruiting class. And I think Emery Jones is really good. I do. But this is another downside about offensive linemen. They're never ready their true freshman season. It's just not a position where that's where you're going to get a lot of help from a true freshman. Now, occasionally there's a Cam Robinson out there, but that's rare. That's rare that a player is physically ready to play as a true freshman. And you kind of don't want them to be ready as a true freshman because then, they have 2 more years that they'd have to play. And, it's kind of hard for your body to withstand that because there are so many injuries on the offensive line. You don't sub out of games. You're playing at a faster pace now more than ever. It's a more mentally exhausting position. There's a huge difference in, picking up A-gap blitzes and understanding 5-man protection schemes and slide protections. And, back when LSU was ground and pound, it was if we double team this guy to oblivion, we go to the second level. And that's as far as you really needed to go as far as knowledge. Now, of course, you would have to know pass blocking and stuff like that, but it is a little bit more complex now. Preston, this was that was actually yesterday's video about Major Burns. Is he better than Jay Ward or McGlothern? I don't know because honestly, he hasn't played as much as either one of those two. So yeah, I couldn't tell you that. But here's the thing about Major Burns that you have to keep in mind. Because LSU took Jordan Tolles, which they should have, he was a top 100 player. Now he's not been the player, up to this point that we expected him to be, but it's only year 2 of his maturation. You know, is Major Burns better than those two? I would say no. I would definitely say no for Ward. But McLaughlin as well. He just hadn't played as much. But once again, Georgia's secondary was really freaking good last season. So there's a reason why he didn't play as much. Our best corner Stingley was hurt a lot. Ricks got banged up a lot. So Cordell Fly got ejected. So that gave McLaughlin a lot of those good snaps, which you could tell changed his entire career, really. I mean, the dude, I doubt he would have had the spring if not for all those snaps at the end of the season. And the good thing is McLaughlin got burned a little bit against Florida and Ole Miss, and that's a good thing for a young player to get burned because, it makes you work even harder. It makes you say, look, I've got to put foot on the gas pedal to not make sure that happens again. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Let's see. I know Funky brought up Julian Armella, a 4-star offensive tackle out of the Florida region. Obviously very interested in that. I know Armani Goodwin's high school teammate, Riley Quick, is another offensive tackle. I would be shocked if he didn't go to Alabama, but maybe Armani Goodwin can say a few words to him and get him, Riley Quick, to Baton Rouge. Tall, slender prospect. But Will Campbell's a big deal, and he looks to be a pretty slam dunk prospect. Now, is Will Campbell like Cam Robinson good? Like day one, he could start for 3 seasons. I don't know. His body's going to change a lot, obviously, in the next season. He looks pretty good to me, and his mentality is just incredible. He looks like a bona fide 2-3 year all SEC, all American type of guy. Exactly, Bill. Big Al. It's so much. This game is so much more complex. But my retort to that is these players are so much more smarter now coming out of high school. I shared this on a live stream, I think last Tuesday. I spent an hour, and it was out of nowhere. I didn't know that I would be running into this, but I ran into a 2022 prospect, and I talked to him for an hour, and he didn't know who I was, and I really didn't know who he was. And he's way off the radar. He's not a Jacoby Matthews type of player, but he's participated in 7-on-7 tournaments with these guys. And I was just blown away at how much football knowledge he had. And I don't have much when it comes to like coverages and stuff like that. But man, dude, he understood like bump and run coverages, cover 7, the box technique, which we were going to talk about tomorrow on the Eli Ricks film study. He understood all of that. And on top of that, he and I were talking about when Julio Jones and Patrick Peterson went up against each other. Granted, he is not from Louisiana or Alabama, but he was aware of that. That's what I was talking about earlier. These kids watch YouTube. They watch, film studies and stuff like that. They're so smart now. They're so smart. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all mature and they don't make kid mistakes, but their football knowledge with camps and 7-on-7, it's so advanced now. It's so advanced. I know Bayou Bengal, and I was going to stay away from talking 2023 prospects, but the thing is now that Louisiana's producing all these quarterbacks, and you also have to keep in mind, for those that don't know, quarterbacks commit earlier than every other position. And the reason is because, well, You want to be the only quarterback in that class. And if you commit somewhere early, that will deter other elite quarterbacks from committing there as well. It's kind of marking your spot on that recruiting class. Now, look, just because you commit somewhere doesn't mean that another great quarterback is not going to come. Obviously, Georgia, that's been a great example of all the elite quarterbacks they've gotten. Texas A&M had Kyler Murray and Kyle Allen in back-to-back seasons. And obviously the most famous example of this was the 27 Bama class with Tua and Mac Jones. So, yeah, you can get two great quarterbacks in the same class, or two, 5 stars in back-to-back classes. But the reason why quarterbacks commit early is because of that. So Eli Holstein is a very interesting name. And it's around this time, if I'm not mistaken, we got the Walker Howard commitment. It might be a few months. I don't know. It's just off the top of my head. But Walker Howard committed early. And we can easily see a scenario where Eli Holstein commits. I'm pretty sure he holds an LSU offer. The way I understood it is, Steve Ensminger thinks he's great, and obviously Ensminger's not here anymore. But you look at Eli Holstein, you look at the results from a recent Elite 11. Eli Holstein was the number 1 rated quarterback in an Elite 11 regional camp. Now think about that. This is Elite 11. This is the elite of the elite quarterbacks. And then obviously, you got the Arch Manning domino, and you have the Ricky Collins domino. And I've shared this before. He's commented on here before. Ricky Collins is youth pastor, and some of his friends and family watch this channel. I like Ricky Collins a lot. But once again, these are rising juniors. So Eli Holstein still has a lot of football to play. Ricky Collins still has a lot of football to play. And obviously Arch Manning still has a lot of football to play. Jared's power just went out, and he hotspotted the tablet. And if you're just joining us, Jared super chatted earlier with some storm advice. Kenny, what's good? Kenny, I don't know if you saw your comment. I highlighted your comment, I think, in our video last Friday. Kenny, you always have such great comments. So, Jared, how are you doing? Jared said for me to speak slowly, so I'm going to have time to buffer. Okay. This is about to turn into a Ron Funches stand-up special. Slow jokes, just rolling them out, allowing those punches to hit. So we will slow down for Jared. Kenny says, I want LSU to get Arch and have Walker Howard on the roster and make our QBs elite just like Bama, Clemson, and Oklahoma do. Okay. Cliff says, Max Johnson, Nuss, Howard, Holstein, Manning, way too crowded. No such thing as way too crowded at quarterback. No such thing. Okay. And a perfect example of that, Mac Jones, Jalen Hurts, and Tua all on the same roster. It's pretty ridiculous when you think about it. Now, I don't know why I've been snapping more. Look, here's my take on Arch Manning. So Arch Manning is not calling for attention, and I feel kind of bad for him because, it sucks. He doesn't seem like the attention-seeking type of guy. And, you think of the biggest hype Louisiana recruits, Arch Manning's going to be the biggest. He will be bigger than the Leonard Fournette phenomena. And, Leonard Fournette was just a different level. So Arch Manning is going to have national media coverage because of that last name. And I totally get it. Now, here's the thing about the Arch Manning coverage, and it's one of those things that you have to keep in mind is that when Arch Manning comes to your school, it kind of becomes a story in and of itself. And every single week, it's going to be when's Arch Manning going to be on the field, and then every national media game, every football game LSU plays, there's going to be a camera shot of Arch Manning on the sideline, and obviously he's a sublime talent. He's a top 5. He's the number 1 quarterback for 2023, and he is from New Orleans, and it would be very nice. But understand it's not the end of the world if he comes or if he doesn't come. Now, full disclosure, if this was 5 years ago, all hands on deck, get Arch Manning when we were, not having elite quarterback play. And it was, the Brandon Harris and Anthony Jennings, it would be a little bit different. But now it's not like that. Okay. You've had pretty good quarterback play since, that death spiral of bad quarterback play. So what does that mean? Well, we are not tethered to Arch Manning. Based on what we know about Eli Holstein, if Arch Manning decides to go elsewhere, it's a good thing. And Eli Holstein would be the guy in this class. What if Eli Holstein wants to go elsewhere? Okay, Ricky Collins could be the guy. What if Ricky Collins doesn't want to come? Okay. We still have Garrett Nussmeier and Walker Howard. Don't fret it. Don't worry about it. It's okay. So yeah, I get the Arch Manning thing. I get there's going to be a lot of LSU fans want a Manning. Obviously, the Mannings in New Orleans have done a lot of great things for this state. With that said, it's not the end of the world. And on top of that, if Arch Manning does decide to go somewhere, hope it's not in the SEC. Best case scenario, he ends up going to Tennessee. While that is in the SEC, that you don't play Tennessee every year. Or he goes to Texas, which is outside of the SEC. That'd be perfectly fine. He would fit in pretty perfectly with Sark's offense. He is a pocket quarterback. So, yeah, I wouldn't lose sleep over Arch Manning. I just wouldn't. Now, that is not an indicament of him as a player. In fact, it's the exact opposite. He's the best high school quarterback that'll probably, come out of Louisiana. He'll probably be the highest rated to ever, come out of Louisiana. And he could very well end up, the number 1 rated kid in the class. He's, I think, number 5 right now. With that said, this is not 5 or 10 years ago when the quarterback play was putrid and we were begging for, a savior at the game's most important position. That's already come and gone. We've already gotten Joe Burrow, and it's changed this position already. So, I just think there is a segment of LSU fans that are going to be so obsessed with getting a Manning because, he is a 5-star and he is from Isidore Newman. But understand, you'll be fine. And Eli Holstein's really good. I'm telling you, you don't, and I understand Elite 11 and 7-on-7, that's not actual football. You don't just win these camps. I mean, you got to be good. You've got to be really good. Wait, Danny Etling wasn't elite? He was good. Danny Etling was a good quarterback. They asked him not to turn the football over. He only had 2 interceptions. One of those was against Bama, though. Roger, thank you for the super chat. I'm very passionate about this topic. So we're going to throw it back. And Roger was the one that super chatted. Now, Roger's a friend of mine. I don't believe I didn't pay him to send me this. But this is something I could talk about for a long time because I knew all 3 of these guys here. And I have some inside information regarding Ryan Perrillou's situation. But I'll go to R. Nelson first, okay? And Roger, I'll get to yours in just a second. So R. Nelson, with your super chat, in deciding starting quarterback, how much of a factor does the weak play of the right tackle decide the outcome? So I am really happy you sent that, R. Nelson, because let me do this for you. Okay, pull this up. Because you super chatted, I'm going to hook you up with something. R. Nelson. Hey, everyone. Hey, here. Did you get your feet done, babe? All right, come. Want to see my feet pick? Feet pick. You got to pay for premium. I don't know if Eric is still watching. That's his song. So, R. Nelson, I'm going to answer your question here, but I want you to watch this video after I'm done answering your question, R. Nelson, or wait till after the chat to watch this video. So this is a video I did on this exact topic. In deciding the starting quarterback, how much of a factor does the weak play of the right tackle decide the outcome? So that's a really good question because, if you're so for instance, Austin Deculus didn't have a great spring game. Dare Rosenthal did. So Dare Rosenthal's a left tackle. Austin Deculus is a right tackle. So if you've been in the live chat since the beginning, I think Austin Deculus should go to right guard. Let me see. Oh, your feet look good, babe. I don't want to show these people your feet because you can start an OnlyFans and get $100 a month for that.
Stop.
I
hadn't seen you all day.
Let me show you. Oh, babe.
Got salads.
Oh, you got salad? You got salad too? You got snapper salad?
I did.
You got snappy salad?
Alex, I sent you that text while I was driving. Alex had to go pick it up for us because I wasn't going to be there in time at 8 o'clock when they closed.
She picked it up for us?
Yeah. I mean, we paid for it, but I'm just saying she went and got it because otherwise
we wouldn't have been able to eat.
But so we kudos to Alex for picking it up.
Thanks to Alex, our Syrian goddess.
That's right, she is.
Our Syrian goddess. Her friend is a Syrian goddess. She got her dinner tonight. Having a grilled chicken salad because I've been eating too many Oreos lately. And cookies. Chocolate chip cookies. And these blueberry muffins are catching up to me. Ha, ha, ha.
What is?
Those blueberry muffins.
Oh, those are not.
You said it had 600 calories. So here's the thing. So to answer your question, R. Nelson, and thank you for your super chat. And then we'll get the Roger super chat about Ryan Perrilloux. Okay, so the right tackle would be Max Johnson's blind side. So my biggest fix is put Deculus at right guard and let Cam Wire play right tackle. Cam Wire had a better game at right tackle than Austin Deculus, albeit that was a smaller sample size. Now, as far as the starting offensive line is concerned, I am in the camp that I feel more comfortable with a more mobile quarterback behind a not so great offensive line. So, R. Nelson, to answer your question, yes, I do think Max Johnson should be the starter simply because our offensive line is not where it needs to be right now. I still, fingers crossed, I know they probably watch this and hate my guts. If they're watching right now, I believe in you. But a quarterback does so many different things. And here's the thing, Max Johnson is not Michael Vick. He's not a dynamic athlete. But he does enough. He does bring in the zone read game, which also helps out the running backs. So because of that, I'll go with that. Let's see. All right, Roger. Roger, if people want to see Hey's feet and we get if we get $400 in super chat, I'd be willing to get that uncomfortable. I'm selling your feet for $400, babe. It would take $400. Now, here's the thing. If $400 did all of a sudden just show up, I don't know if I'd actually feel comfortable with that. I would kind of be freaked out by that. That would be the most uncomfortable $400 I've ever received. Yeah, Max, it's weird. I was reading how people are paying for rent for feet pics on OnlyFans, and Rain makes his first or her first live chat, uh, and we are talking about OnlyFans. So Rain, everyone, welcome Rain to Rain's first ever live chat. Rain, this is what we talk about: OnlyFans accounts. Was that 10 spot good for a toe? Roar Nelson. It is amazing though. Like what was it? Who's the coach? It's Rex Ryan with the foot fetish. It's a very real thing. And if that's your thing, I hope I didn't trigger any emotions. If that's your thing, it's fine with me. You do you. So Cliff has always said this: if Ryan Perlew goes to Texas, Colt McCoy would have come to LSU. Okay, so Harold Joyner, linebacker from Texas. I thought his name was Harold Perkins. Or no, is that right? Harold Joyner. I like him. My brain just fried on recruiting. So I did transfer portal. Kenny, you're gonna have to enlighten me a little bit. Oh, you had red beans and rice a day late. So I'm going to answer Roger's super chat. Okay. What was on the menu tonight? Ramen grilled chicken salads. We were going to do lobster ravioli.
No, tomorrow's tacos.
But tomorrow we're going to be basic and do tomorrow. We're going to have tacos, elotes. Y'all come on over.
We got tacos, hot corn. I got chips and salsa and cheese dip.
I'm inviting everyone over. We haven't gotten the $400 for your feet.
Babe, stop that. That's gross.
I know, but would you not show your feet for like 10 seconds? $400.
Well,
Max just put $5. I'm just kidding.
Carter,
Huh?
stop. You did not throw your dirty clothes on the bed.
I didn't.
You did. You had this on.
Well, I had to put this on last second.
Mm-hmm.
You know I sweat. No, Tremaine, this is the lobster ravioli. That's like, what, $3 from Trader Joe's? It's $3 from... It's so good, though. It's the low key. Lobster ravioli does sound so fancy, but Trader Joe's. And we don't live, like, we had to go to a Trader Joe's 2 hours away. But that lobster ravioli was worth it. Number 7. Oh, man. Okay, so here's what I'll do, Roger. All right, Max, I'm going to answer Roger's super chat here on Ryan Perlew. If I'm going to get to this, unless I get that $400. Do you think the Ryan Perlew situation messed up Jared Lee and Jordan Jefferson's career and they were thrown into the fire prematurely? Okay, so what do we know now? We know Les Miles was not a great offensive coach. He wasn't big on innovation. So maybe the offense would have never really evolved the way it should have with Ryan Perlew. The biggest loser in the Ryan Perlew thing was Terrence Tolliver, who had to play his 3 years of prime football, his sophomore, junior, and senior season, with the rotating door of Jared Lee and Jordan Jefferson for those 3 seasons. So that guy still performed with those guys at quarterback. And it wasn't that either one of those guys are necessarily bad. It's just it was the flip-flopping, okay? Now, neither one of those guys were great, but neither one of them were just bad, okay? We almost won a national championship with them. Now, the Ryan Perlew situation, you should be responsible for your actions. However, Ryan Perlew was a larger-than-life high school star. He was Leonard Fournette before Leonard Fournette. Now, he never quite got to the celebrity of Leonard Fournette, but he simply was that big. There's a good story about how Ryan Perrilloux, it was written by a Texas writer who went along with Ryan Perrilloux to a high school basketball game, and just the treatment. I mean, he was royalty, and some would say he was a better raw baseball player than he was football player. Went to East St. John High School, and he was just so huge. The thing is Ryan Perrilloux's social circle was pretty big, and it didn't feature the absolute best. Now, I can say that as someone that got pretty good intel from someone really close to Ryan Perrilloux, and he swears up and down to me, and we're still friends to this day, that Ryan Perrilloux was on the wrong end of not getting away from home. So being from East St. John in that area, he was less than an hour away from Baton Rouge. He's not the only South Louisiana guy that couldn't get away from negative influences surrounding him. So I always say this, if Ryan Perrilloux would have gone to Texas, he probably would have been the guy that we expected him to be. He would have been under Mac Brown's tutelage. He would have, and Mac would have made sure to surround him with people that he needed to be surrounded by. So, I'm not absolving Ryan Perrilloux. I'm sure if he had a do-over, he would, take what the talents he had more seriously. But long story short about Ryan Perrilloux is some guys need to get away from South Louisiana. Some guys just need to get away from home. So that is something very important.
Number 3.
Oh, you found the White Claw variety pack number 3? There you go. So that's the Ryan Perrilloux situation. If he would have played at LSU, he would have been phenomenal. He would have been a year one guy in 2018 with Brandon LaFell and Terrence Tolliver, and then 2018. I meant to say 2008, and then in 2009 he would have probably, as a senior, pushed for a Heisman Trophy. I really do believe he was a special talent. I don't think he's a bad person. I just think when you're that big of a celebrity in high school, and everyone tells you how great you are, and this person close to Ryan Perrilloux is one of the best friends I ever made at LSU, and he would tell me all the time, he was like, I just sometimes wish you would have gone somewhere else. So that's my side of it. So I understand some of you will say, well, you're absolving Ryan Perrilloux of any wrongdoing. Not really. No, I really do believe that story. I do believe that. And, Les Myles, he was not a moralist. He gave Ryan Perrilloux plenty of chances. It was just too bad, and they had to move on. And he still made the NFL. So it shows you how much raw ability he had. And if he would have been, because Matt Flynn was great and, Jamarcus Russell was great, but if he would have been the guy that we expected him to be, who knows what type of quarterbacks would have followed? Would someone, I know LSU was in discussions with Terrell Pryor at some point. Imagine if someone like that at LSU, there's no telling the trajectory of quarterback recruiting and development if Ryan Perrilloux would have been the guy. Now, as far as like Jarrett Lee and Jordan Jefferson is concerned, I think the biggest thing with those two guys was neither one of them was ever really the quarterback. And, both of them had their own issues. Jordan Jefferson wasn't, the sharpest thrower of the football, and Jarrett Lee was, a turnover machine. Were they thrown into the fire too early? Absolutely. But, I think both of them were good Tigers. Obviously, you had the suspension with Jordan Jefferson in the early parts of 2011 with the Bogies fight. But still, I think both of them are great Tigers, and they both did good things for LSU overall. Think about what you know about a Les Miles offense now, and the communication now, and the time management now, and the discombobulation now. And think about what it did to their development. And think about all the great quarterbacks that came to LSU after them. And you notice we never developed a guy. We couldn't develop a guy. Steven Rivers came, horrible. Anthony Jennings came, horrible. Brandon Harris came, horrible. Well, were any of these guys head cases? No, the exact opposite. They were excellent kids. Well, did any of these bad work ethic? No. I mean, Brandon Harris was recruited by Sean McVay to go to the Rams this season. I think that's a pretty good work ethic to me. Did any of these guys just not have talent? Maybe they could have all three just been bad. But then you have Hayden Reddick, and then you have so-and-so and so-and-so. The list goes on and on of guys that just, Zach Lee, but he chose baseball over football, so we don't know. It's weird. It's really weird. Exactly, V-Law, to say the least. Colt McCoy was the truth in college. He was really good. So, Max, I'm going to get to your question. So, Roger, I don't know if you're still watching. Hopefully that answers your question. Once again, I've taken some heat from what I've said about Paraloo in the past on other LSU projects. I'll defend him. I'm going to defend him. It could be my bias, but I understand. He set LSU back. There's no doubt about it. But it probably would have done him some good. Not to go elsewhere. So, Max, let me see. Jarrett Lee continued to make me angry as a kid, especially in the 2018-2008 Alabama game. Yeah. Let's see. This is interesting. If Kerry Vincent would have played this year, do you think he would have been drafted higher? I don't know, because look, people aren't including both sides to this conversation, okay? Because this has been the narrative. Well, if Kerry Vincent and Tyler Shelvin would have come back, they would have been drafted higher. Maybe. Okay, that's a huge maybe. What they don't tell you is if Jacoby Stevens had not played at all, he wouldn't have been a 6th-round pick. Remember this, okay? Jacoby Stevens ran really well at the combine, and he had a 42-inch vertical leap, which is insane. So his athleticism scores are great, but he still slid in the draft. Okay, Jacoby Stevens probably would have been a 2nd or 3rd, maybe 4th-round selection, and his draft stock actually slipped by playing this season. So it's impossible to know if Kerry Vincent, if he would have come back, if his draft stock would have slid. I could argue he possibly could have gone undrafted. Imagine if he was in the secondary and the secondary was as poorly coached as it was last season. Well, what happens? How much of the blame do you want to put on Cordell Flott as his backup? It can't entirely just be Cordell Flott's fault for the secondary just being bad. So, I understand that it's, convenient to say, well, Tyler Shelvin and Kerry Vincent sat out and they barely got drafted. Well, in Tyler Shelvin's case, he is a nose tackle. Those used to get selected a lot, okay? Michael Brockers, Vita Vea, Danny Shelton, all 1st-round picks, all played in the NFL a long time. So all 3 of those guys were nose tackle, A-gap, one technique type of guys, and none of those guys were bust. A lot of the nose tackles selected in the 1st round got 5th-year options or contract extensions. They just don't get drafted that high anymore because they don't affect the pass. Remember, NFL departments are more analytic-based now more than ever, and they are no longer going to select 1st-round picks that don't have any effect on the passing game. So if you're not a quarterback, if you're not a wide receiver, if you're not a pass rusher, if you're not a corner or a really good safety, the chances of you getting drafted high are very little now. Very little, or left tackle. So Tyler Shelvin, his stock slid more so than anything else because of how the game has changed instead of his actual ability. Brody Miller had a really good story on Tyler Shelvin in the Athletic, and he said Bill Belichick was watching LSU film to watch Jacoby Stevens and Jamar Chase and all these guys. And Bill Belichick says, "I want number 72." He said that was the guy that really stood out to him. So what do we know about Bill Belichick? Well, he drafted Vince Wilfork in the first round. Vince Wilfork, one of the best 3-4 nose tackles in the history of the game. And before that, he had Ted Washington, another great 3-4 fulcrum nose tackle. So we're talking about the greatest NFL coach to ever do it. And he loved Tyler Shelvin. It's just his skill set isn't as valued as it once was in the NFL. So, to say that Kerry Vincent and Tyler Shelvin hurt their stock because they opted out, that might be true, but you have to include that Jacoby Stevens slid and he played. So, Max, here's the thing. I think so. To answer this question, I think for 100% fact that Kerry Vincent comes back, he would have bumped up a round or two at least. So, here's the thing about that. Is that worth coming back? I'm not so sure. Okay, so if you were to ask Kerry Vincent before last season, look, if you come back for another season, instead of getting selected in the 5th round or whatever it was, 6th round, you're going to get selected in the 4th round. You're still a day 3 pick. There's not much change in pay. He would probably still sit out. It was a pandemic. I mean, you got to remember during that time, we just didn't know a whole lot about what was going on. We didn't. It was a mess. It was different, and Tyler Shelvin's piece by Brody Miller illuminated that. They were taking major risk not playing or choosing to play. So, it wasn't as easy of a decision for them as, compared to like Jamar, who is just transcendent, but it's different. And I've stayed away from it because it's funny. I was talking to a draft writer not too long ago, and he said, I'm sure your NFL draft content's been killing. It's not. My NFL draft content did not perform well. I do one piece on Major Burns. It's one of the most popular videos I've done in this season. So, it's part of the reason why just you guys don't hear so much about the draft. The difference in a 4th round and a 6th round pick is you're less likely to get cut. Maybe, I don't know. Okay. Muttley asks, so hopefully, Max, that answers your question. I know you disagree with me. I know you think Kerry Vincent should have played. And personally, I think he should have played too. But I'm pushing back against the belief that if he would have played, it would have changed his stock a whole lot. Round 6 and 7 players have a lot less league offseason and making the cut. Okay. Well, he should have come back then. I mean, look, it was different during that time. So what I'm saying is I'm not saying it was a right or wrong decision. I just don't know much better pick. I mean, if he would have gotten up to the 1st or 2nd round, then obviously he should have played. But did he have 1st or 2nd round potential? I mean, He definitely has first or second round speed. There's no denying that. So yeah. Let's see. But I will say this. I don't think it's good for college football to have guys just opting out. I just don't. I would rather just allow guys to leave after their sophomore season. Tony says, what besides a hard hitting was good about Jacoby Stevens? Oh, a lot. Number one, special teams. He was an excellent special teamer early on in his career. Number two, he's a good leader. Number three, he's got good ball skills. I mean, that interception against Mississippi State was incredible. Now, is he a good deep safety the way that an Ed Reed or Troy Polamalu is? No, he's a box hitter, but he could be one of these hybrid linebacker types. But yeah, I'll tell you this, he lived up to his 5-star billing. Let's see. Motley says, who hired Les Miles? That would be Skip Bertman. And why did Les Miles last for so long? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Let's see. Rain, that's a good point right there. That 2019 class needs to step up this year. Both the running backs need to. Flott, Trey Palmer, and a lot of guys who haven't lived up to their ranking. Well, I'll tell you this. I think Cordell Flott has exceeded his ranking. I just would not have thought he would be a 2019 true freshman contributor, and he was really good. Obviously, 2020 was a step back. We'll see. This is his money year. Trey Palmer's interesting. I'm a little apologetic towards him because, he was never going to play over any of the guys that were ahead of him. And on top of that, he's never really gotten his chance. Now, this past season just wasn't that great for him. He was one of the worst droppers on the team when he actually got a chance to play. So he's been a really good kickoff and substitute punt returner up to this point. Now, obviously, the 2019 running backs are big, but they didn't have any holes to run through this past season. Cardell Thomas, I agree with that. Anthony Bradford. Yeah, Anthony Bradford should be ready to go. According to Ed Orgeron, not all offensive linemen are ready year 2. Now, if you're not ready by year 3, then that's a problem. And this is year 3 for Anthony Bradford. So you're right. Boom. Let's see here. I want to make sure I didn't miss any Cash Apps or Venmos. I made my first NBA bet in 1,000 years. And I took the Nets too. And they're currently getting destroyed. Never bet against Giannis. Giannis is such a monster. I don't watch as much NBA since we don't get cable anymore. It sucks what happened to Marcus Aldridge. I would bet against Giannis in the heartbeat. Giannis is a beast. I'm a Greek freak fan. Tony, I could go into a rant about NBA playoffs. That is so crazy. But I think the NBA playoffs are the NBA playoffs are a sham. They're a sham. So we're hour 55 in. We go a little off topic. So once again, if you want to go back to LSU football, feel free to super chat, Venmo, Cash App. If not, I'll share this NBA rant. It's funny. It's weird how in the NBA. So when you're a child, when you start playing basketball, you always had tournaments, right? And sometimes you'll have round robin, but eventually every basketball tournament you ever play in is decided in a single elimination format. Okay. Every single one. So March Madness, every college level tournament is a single elimination format. Every AAU tournament is a single elimination format. Every basketball game you play, it is rare that you play the same team back. Now, it's ironic because the Pelicans and Warriors are playing on back-to-back nights. It just doesn't hardly ever happen. But for some reason, at the highest level,
I'm gonna have to go do a welfare check on Mimi. Papa can't get nobody in into the phone.
What's happening?
I don't know. I don't know if it's something or what.
I'm about to have to sign off and check on Haley's parents. They're fine health-wise. I don't know what's happening. So I'll share this with you though. So your whole life, you're deciding basketball by single elimination games. So more than 75% of the basketball you play during your NBA career is in single elimination. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with series. But then the one thing that decides the legacies of every single NBA player is basketball played in a completely different format. Okay. As any one of you that have a decent amount of basketball knowledge, the NBA playoffs are a completely different animal than the regular season. You have to beat a team 4 games out of 7 compared to just beating them once, which is what you have to do in high school and college and most of the time in the NBA. So think about the highest level of basketball. It is determined, the highest level of basketball is determined by a series format. That makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. Every game, everything you do in basketball is single elimination. It's that game, and then you go on to the next game. Or it's that game and your season's over. Except in the NBA, where we have these conferences and divisions that don't really make any sense geographically, don't really make any sense. They're really useless. There's no reason to have an East and a West. It serves no purpose. There are no real travel restrictions in NBA teams. They fly in private jets. They have personal trainers. There's no real travel issues between East and West. There's no geographical advantage. It makes no sense. And there's been a horrible imbalance between the two conferences since the post-Jordan era. So the Eastern Conference for now over 2 decades has been far inferior to the Western Conference, despite the Eastern Conference for most of that time having the 2 best players ever in the past 3 decades in Jordan and LeBron. So that's the thing. The NBA is the worst structured sport we have. And it's not even close. It makes no sense. The playoff format makes no sense. The game is played differently. You got to be a team 4 out of 7. And the game is officiated differently. So we play these 82 games for what? So a lot of you are wondering, God, I don't like NBA talk. Well, here's the thing. That's creeping into college football. Because now there will never be series in football, but the more you expand playoffs, the more you devalue regular season, the worse the sport's going to get. Here's a good example of this. Take the Florida game this past season. Okay, take the Florida game. Think about how great that Florida win was. You were able to take away Florida's college football playoff berth. Well, if there was an 8-team or a 16-team playoff or 12-team or whatever, even losing the LSU game would have been fine. Because if Florida would have beaten Alabama in the SEC championship game in an 8-team playoff, they probably still get in. In a 16-team playoff, they definitely get in. It's the bottom line. What did Hey do? I don't know what Hey did. I don't know what she's panicking about either. So yeah, that's my NBA rant. It drives me crazy because it was my favorite sport growing up. But now that the regular season is totally devalued, it sucks. It absolutely sucks. Yeah, Rain, the bowl season will never be the same. So, well, there you go. Well, yeah. Let's see. Are there any more questions? Any more super chats, Venmos? Don't forget, get your shirt. You would totally make me happy if you get your Power Hour LSU shirt. Boom. Right here. There you go. It sounds like everything's okay. I think Haley was panicking because her parents weren't picking up the phone. And they always do, like, first ring. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 5:30 Central, the Elias Ricks film study. Okay? So what I will do... That is the link.
I just told him it was headed out there. Your phone help find his cell phone. Can I see it, please? Yeah.
We're about to sign off anyway. Stereotyping guys like Barry Bonds should make the Hall of Fame. Yes. Let's see. Special teams questions. Will we find another kicker like Cade York? Probably not as good. Cade York's pretty elite. Cade York will probably be the first kicker taken in next year's draft. That's right, Leonard. Nice shirt. Everyone's got to get their shirt, huh, Leonard? Hope you enjoyed this. That is a link to the Elias Ricks film study tomorrow. If you click it, if you click that link, you can also click a reminder, and it'll remind you for the 5:30 p.m. Central Eli Ricks film study tomorrow. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. See you tomorrow. I really wouldn't get the show. Oh, man. Shout out to Dan Le Batard.